Thank you very much. Yes, I was asked to introduce a little bit the same project, Land Sea Act, as Anda was speaking, and now I realized that maybe we should have had some sort of common introduction to this Land Sea Act project. But also we deal a lot with participation, and I actually have two cases. But also I was asked to show a little bit the background of integrated coastal zone management and maritime spatial planning activities in Estonia. Sorry. So we, as part of European Union, this integrated coastal zone management, we have done some pilots in Estonia, but sort of this kind of approach has been phased out in European Union legislation, and it has been merged with this maritime spatial planning. So in Estonia, this maritime spatial planning, there is a link for the ministry who was responsible for organizing this. And much more materials, of course, are in Estonian and translated into English. So that's why I'm showing you this Estonian web page. And the process started 2017. And currently, until 8th of December, it was possible to still submit recommendations or protests. And now after 8th of December, we are waiting for the ministry to process these final arguments. And then any day now, or maybe in the beginning of next year, the first maritime spatial plan will be adopted in Estonia. And why also this maritime spatial plan is maybe somewhat different from some other countries. For example, in Finland, sea can be part of private property. In Estonia, the sea belongs to the state. So state has 100% jurisdiction over the sea areas. And first of all, before all the planning was started, several new surveys were made. And they are all available in this aforementioned website. So they were investigating fish populations, sea bird migration routes, the seals, the ice coverage issues and extent, and then so on. And most of the protests have been actually, like the previous question was, about offshore wind farms. And what wasn't actually originally planned was the visual impact assessment for this offshore wind parks that has been now finalized, and it's, I think, available in Estonian. I'm not sure if it's available in English. And also a private company, Hendrickson Co, one of the largest planning companies in Estonia, was doing much of the practical work for it. So all sort of these GIS-based mapping solutions and organizing participation meetings was done by this company. So there is another web page that is putting together all the materials that are done during this planning process. And my presentation is based on two projects. One that ended in 2018, Sustain Baltic. So it was ICID, Integrated Coastal Zone Management Plans for Sustaining Coastal and Marine Human Ecological Networks in the Baltic region, together with Estonia and Finland. And our current project that is still 10 days in running, Land Sea Act, Land Sea Interactions Advancing Blue Growth in Baltic Sea Coastal Areas from 2019 to 2021. And this project includes Estonia, Latvia, Poland, Germany, Denmark, and Sweden. So we were 6 countries, and I think it was 13 partners participating. But the project was very nice because each of the participating country could solve its own problems. So our case studies, our next presenter is from Germany, so you can hear how different these approaches have been. And the case study area that I'm talking, it was roughly the same for the 2 projects, northern Estonian coast, and it's actually an hour drive away from our capital, Tallinn. It's majority of the area is Lahemaa National Park, which was the first national park in Soviet Union, created in 1971. And it's an attractive environment because it consists of several bays and peninsulas, and coastal landscapes are nice with erratic boulders. And it has been for more than a century, it has been sort of a summer resort place. And it's filled with maritime culture. So you somehow feel or see sea-related culture in the area. But it suffers from also seasonality that, as you know, the summers are not too long. So June, July, August, this is a time when everybody goes there, and the rest of the year, it's rather empty. And the problem with this area is this marginalization. And what do we mean by marginalization? The working age population is rather low. Here are the villages, and the share of the working age population is the more red, the more smaller it is. So for some villages, it is 80%, which is rather good. But for other coastal villages, it is below 50%. So less than 50% of these populations are in working age. So they are either very young, which is doubtful, or very old. And also the population decline. So the Estonian villages are very, very small. And for statistical reasons, where there are less than 3 people registered in the village, these are not shown, the numbers. But you can see that there are areas that are some small towns that there are 3,000 people living there, dark green. But also in a couple of villages, there are only registered 8 inhabitants, or 4 inhabitants, or 18. So actually the population, and also therefore the taxes that come to the municipality, are really low. So there can't be many development projects done in the area. And also with the rest of the marginalization, it's aging. Here is the share of elderly in the beginning of previous year. So the highest percentage of elderly is 75 in the area. So maybe it's not so devastating, but we have the issue that, for example, coastal fishing is done by older men, not so much by women. And there are no new younger fishermen coming to the occupation of fishing. So the traditions of how these landscapes and boat sheds and how to make a net and how to clean them and where to go and where are the good fishing spots. We are losing this kind of knowledge in local level, but also in the state level. And the problem is that the landscape looks very cute. We have white houses that previously were owned by captains and red roofs. We have these erratic boulders. Quite many places in the shoreline are accessible by boat. So you very often don't need a big harbor. but the small landing sites. And these have been sort of by farms or by villages, shared places. But also there are harbors in the area, but they are rather small. And our project was looking into how to foster blue growth. So how to make use of the sea so that the local population could prosper from using the sea, but using the sea, of course, in sustainable manner. So what are the options? And Maritime Spatial Planning did several studies, as I showed, and majority of them, the suitable places, for example, for aquaculture, which is one of the pillars of blue growth. The most suitable areas are in the Western Estonia, so by the islands. And as this northern coast is very deep, so it's not suitable for aquaculture. Also, biotechnology or blue biotechnology. So it's very difficult to advance it, especially in the villages. So research and development is mainly made in big cities, but also the areas where this nature protection is more prevalent are in the western of Estonia. Well, cultural heritage, the mapping shows that it is everywhere, or also in this northern Estonian portion of the coastline, and mineral extraction from the seabed. It's also some sand and gravel pits there are in northern Estonia, but not much. And also people, I think, object very much of underwater mining of resources. And renewable energy, which is a big part of the Maritime Spatial Plan. It's also that the suitable areas, if they did an exercise of where to place them and where not to place them, then actually only 2 big areas in the southwest of Estonia. So this is shared with Latvia. And we have projects to do a common offshore wind farm in the area. So actually for northern Estonia, the only solution is coastal tourism, how to foster the local life. And we don't know yet all the effects of the COVID pandemic, but it was very interesting to see last year when the state of emergency was declared, how the mobile data usage spread all over the country. So it wasn't very high in the area, but after this, everybody moved to their summer homes because of the distant working conditions. So we see that much more people have been settled there. And now it's the question that will this remain or it will not? And also, yeah, the usage of summer homes there. So the workflow for both of the project has been rather similar. Maybe I'm talking to the right-hand side project of this Land Sea Act a little bit more. So there have been constant consultations with Maritime Spatial Planning. We have had background information gathering, doing interviews with the municipalities, small craft harbors, stakeholders, and local inhabitants. And we have done assessment and analysis. We have used scenario building and questionnaires. And the questionnaires were very long to understand what the local people want. So if Latvians got 1,000 representatives all over the country, we selected only the case study area villages. So we had 758 respondents, and also as we're dealing with blue growth, then also enterprises, that what is the view of the enterprises in blue growth. And the participation. So being kind of the central topic of my talk, I only have one slide to it. I think the most important thing for us during these two projects has been to find the correct people to consult. And usually if you put out the public announcement that we will discuss these things, only very few people gather. And usually if you do several of the meetings in the same area, then the same people come again and again and again. And it's very hard to engage the people who are not coming. So actually doing field work and meeting people in the area, and sometimes these chance encounters that have been provided much more interesting insights into what people think, yeah, sort of moving around in the area seems to be a very key to getting people engaged. And also focus group interviews. For example, we had Fishermen's Union. We contacted them and then we had discussions that what are the problems with fishermen. We did deep interviews with harbor owners, that what are the issues with harbors. We also marine rescue search groups, municipalities, and so on. And also different kind of other things that you can use, participatory GIS and surveys, but sort of but then you can a lot of quantitative data. But if you want to have qualitative data, what is important, then I think interviews or focus group interviews would provide much of the material. The problem is also that, again, this is a project, not really a planning. And in planning, you also have to do these public meetings. And I also participated in Maritime spatial plan meetings. And sometimes I was the only one there. So there were people from the ministry and the planning firm. And I wasn't the local person, but sort of interested in the issues. And I went there and I was the only person who participated. So engaging people is very time consuming and also costly, that you have to drive there, make the meeting, announcements, and then people don't come. So we also talk of participation fatigue, that if you are sort of this gatekeepers person, that sort of the key person in the community, then you attend all the meetings and you always say the same stuff. And it's not always maybe getting you most of the information that you need. And sort of to approach holistically what people want, we did a scenario study in the area, and two of the main concerns are the environmental restraints in the national park and economic pressures, because if the area is marginalizing, so how to develop it? So do people want more development or they don't want development? So we had 4 scenarios, fast forward excitingly, so that there will be more projects, more spa tourism, more excitement, excursions, mass tourism, and so on. Scenario B, place-based vacation, that everything is still tourism-based, but smaller scale. Virtual lenses, scenario C, considering COVID pandemic and trends in tourism, that you only need some kind of virtual lenses to put on yourself, so you don't really need to go somewhere and do anything, but you can maybe sit in the community house and virtually go fishing with the fishermen. And the patchwork of restrictions, if nature protection will become more powerful, then yeah, sort of exciting parts of the tourism will be maybe prohibited. So what will happen to the landscape? And the scenario development, the process was also including public meetings with the stakeholders, students at the universities, and also pupils in the local schools that were also drawing us the pictures and answering some worksheets that what is good and what is bad and what they imagine. And for the young people, we asked for 9th graders. They were saying that they will leave the area because nothing is happening there. So yeah, the marginalization is still an issue there. And the results, here is also left upper is scenario A, excitement. So we can say 50-50. The most likely scenario everywhere was scenario B, place-based vacation, that there will be niche tourism, ecotourism, some development, but not majority of big spas, but maybe small Airbnb type of accommodation like it is currently today. And the most least liked was the virtual lenses, scenario C, and also the patchwork of restrictions that we previously had thought that it's very likely. Both the local people and enterprises deem that it's not so restrictive nature protection. And we had control questions that what are the most likely and most pleasant to happen from the scenarios, and again, scenario B1. So what people want is some development so that the villages won't die out, but also that it wouldn't change landscape too much. And we also had mapping of conflicts. And it's interesting to see how enterprises do not see too many conflicts. So the green is no conflict. So the green span in enterprises is much wider than in local inhabitants. But also the enterprises see a lot of large conflicts. So their worldview is somehow polarized, that they see things that allow them to develop, but also what they don't, things also that won't allow them to develop. And of course, the biggest is energy production versus state defense reasons, that these offshore wind parks cannot be built in the Finnish Gulf. And also, yeah, that economic activities are somewhat restricted in nature protection areas. And what people see are the most wanted areas to develop are hiking trails, beach infrastructure, and small craft harbor services. So a kind of, as the scenarios showed, small scale nature-based solutions are wanted. And the least wanted thing was motorized water sports. So every kind of jet skis and yeah, motorized water sport is not appreciated at all. And also we can see, for example, spa hotels that would be one of the sort of exciting developments are not so much liked. And what are the tourism future tendencies is that everything is possible, so to say. But I see that I'm running out of time, so I take my pre-last slide, a case study of Käsmu Harbor. So Käsmu is here, and Võsu has a harbor that is, I think, now 5 years old, the new harbor, and Käsmu Harbor is still, the planning is still in court. In the second case, it got cancelled. And the issue is that how many small craft harbors we need. So all the red harbors are existing harbors currently, and the yellow ones are the ones that are in waiting for development. And major issue is that how many harbors and how large harbors we need. That the local residents actually don't need maybe so much harbors, but the summer home owners who are maybe a little bit more wealthy, they would like to have yachts from coming in. So they want really large developments that people are opposed. So it's not place-based developments. So there are a lot of fighting for doing harbors in Estonia, but this would certainly increase economic development, but in expense of perhaps the local peculiarities of the area. So thank you for your attention.